I'd like to reintroduce Dr. Lori McFarlane, and I'll read out Lori's bio. Dr. Lori McFarlane graduated from the University of Waterloo in 1987 with a BSc in Health Studies. In 1991, she received her Doctorate of Medicine from the University of Western Ontario. After completing her family medicine residency at UBC in 1993, she practiced full-service family medicine with an emphasis on obstetrics in Vancouver. In 1998, she moved to Denman Island and continued to practice family medicine in Courtenay. Lori believes that exploring the biopsychosocial and spiritual aspects of illness and wellness may allow wholeness and healing, even in the palliative setting. For her own self-care, she strums on the ukulele, tends her garden, practices yoga, hikes, and cherishes time spent with her husband of 35 years. Lori is thrilled to be part of the Inspire Health Victoria team and looks forward to empowering patients as they discover their own healing paths throughout life's myriad stages. Let's welcome Lori here tonight.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Karen. And I'm like Connie, honestly, I was told as a third-year medical student that I was very good with the deaf patients. So I don't normally need to be mic'd. So if you're having any trouble though hearing me, please just let me know. So thank you, Gary. Yeah, that's my bio. And in fact, not that there's going to be a quiz on this, but as I was putting that together for you, and I sent it off to my colleague in Vancouver because I wanted to update my bio on the website, and she emailed me back and she said, Laura, you didn't move to Denman Island in 1998. You moved to Denman Island in 2008 because I took your practice in 2008. And so I have had that wrong on our website for 5 years. So I've been on Denman since 2008, not since 1999. I was 15 years in Vancouver. So I'm a family doctor. That's with the CCFP. You know, we always have these letters beside our name. So that's Canadian College of Family Physicians, and a specialist will have an FRCPC beside their name, just so you know what that's all about. And I've been with Inspire Health now since 2013, and I live on Denman Island, and I just love this work in supportive cancer care. So I drive down from Denman Island every Wednesday, and I just work 2 days a week, Wednesdays and Thursdays. And then I usually deal at home on Thursdays, but tonight I'm really happy to stay here with you guys, and I'll whip home tomorrow morning. So this is the talk, is optimizing lifestyle factors for patients with prostate cancer. So this is our agenda. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the organization with which I work, Inspire Health. And then we're going to talk about engaging in self-care and healthy choices. I'm going to give you a little bit of underlying biology, physiology as to why this matters. And we're going to talk a little bit about the immune system and cancer. And then we're going to spend the bulk of the talk talking about what are the things that we can do to take care of ourselves. So Inspire Health is a not-for-profit charity. We're 21 years old now, founded in 1997. We're partially funded by the ministry, but we do rely on donations from the community to provide our classes and programs. Our main center is in Vancouver, and we can, as you see, we've got centers in Victoria, Kelowna, and a virtual center. There are no fees for patients to attend our services. So we all rely on fundraising, don't we? It seems to be the thing, yeah. So this is what we do, supportive cancer care. Self-management is really the cornerstone of this idea of person-centered care, that we support people with cancer and their families to play an active role in their own care. We emphasize quality of life, that our programs and services use evidence-based lifestyle approaches that support overall health and well-being. I've got a nice visual that's going to, I think, help to explain this a little bit better. So who is eligible? Anyone with a current or past diagnosis of cancer. So we can see anyone who has ever been diagnosed with cancer. You need to have a PHN, you need to be over 16. Family and support people are encouraged to participate in our programs. Patients can attend Inspire Health before, during, after treatments, and they can attend even if they have not been offered treatment or if they have chosen not to pursue treatment. So this is the kind of traditional cancer-based model. This is the model that I would have learned as a medical student back in the late 80s, that the doctor is kind of the all-knowing person there, telling the patient what to do. You are your diagnosis. You are your prostate cancer. Go see the prostate cancer room 312, Lori. And we're going to hit your prostate cancer with some chemo, with some radiation, with some surgery. So this is our model, and this is evolving. I see a lot of medical students, I have a lot of medical students working with me, and I'm pleased to see that this is starting to go a bit by the by. But here's our supportive cancer care model, where we like to think that the person with the diagnosis is at the center of care, that there are a number of different healthcare practitioners working together with you, that you are gathering information, and that you are making choices that make sense for you. So for those of you who are here tonight, that just speaks volumes to me. You guys are the ones who are really interested in understanding what is going on with your diagnosis, gathering information so that you can make choices that are best for you. So in our model, we talk about whole person care, so you are a whole person. You happen to have a diagnosis of cancer. Certainly things like chemo, like radiation, like surgery are important for most people with a diagnosis of cancer. And then look at all of the other things that you can do to support your health. So that sort of goes around the circle there. And those are the things that we concentrate on at Inspire Health. When I'm talking to oncologists in particular, because they say, Lori, what do you do? I don't really get what you do. And I say, we're kind of like cardiac rehab, but we do this for oncology. So you can see if I just substituted heart disease for cancer there. So you can imagine back in the day when I was in medical school, it was novel to think that if you had a heart attack, you would be referred for cardiac rehab. You know, what's that got? You got to be in hospital, you have to have a surgery, maybe you have a stent put in place, you take some medications. And cardiac rehab now is the norm. For people who have a heart attack, they're sent off to cardiac rehab, they exercise, they learn how to eat well, they learn how to take care of themselves. And this is where we hope that oncology care will go. And actually your supportive, you have the pamphlet up here, but the supportive care program that you have and that you've initiated that's been in Vancouver is fantastic and really dovetails with the kind of work that we do. So I'm thrilled, and I have certainly sent many gentlemen to your program. So here's some lifestyle statistics in cancer and why we think it's important that we exist. Only about 15 to 20% of folks who've had a diagnosis of cancer meet the minimal standards for a healthful diet. And those standards are, this is a minimal standard, 5 or more fruits and veggies a day. So I always say if you eat 3 Big Macs but you get some veggies in there, you're going to be considered healthy. So this is pretty low benchmark for healthy diet. A bit better with activity targets, 30 to 47%. But if we look at what standards we would suggest for a healthy diet, for minimal exercise, and for not smoking, only about 5% of people who've been diagnosed with cancer actually meet those guidelines. And that's about the same as the general population. So we obviously tend to speak to the converted people who come to us, are interested in saying, you know what, I just want to see if there's something that I can do lifestyle-wise that may help to prevent a recurrence, but certainly will make me feel better. So the way that we can offer all of these fantastic services is because we are a clinical team. So we are physicians. All of the physicians at Inspire Health are family doctor trained. I no longer have a stethoscope around my neck or a table to examine or a blood pressure cuff. So my role really is more, I call it more around medical counseling, and I have a slide to sort of flesh that out in a minute. We have clinical counselors, master's level, we have exercise therapists who are kinesiologists, and we have a team of registered dietitians and nutritionists. So that's the team that we've got, and again, that's how we can offer all of these different services. So this is kind of the work that I do, that we help with questions and concerns relating to decision-making around treatment, work, lifestyle. We talk a lot about stress and worries and emotional concerns, lifestyle questions, caffeine, alcohol, for example, exercise, obviously. Sleep challenges can be a big problem for many people, sexual health and cancer, and just helping people find reliable information. It certainly sounds, you guys have a fantastic resource with the Prostate Island Center here, and you've got the library and you've got books, and it's really good to know where to be able to find reliable information. I get a 90-minute first visit with patients, which is just wonderful. We really have time to just explore your story with cancer, all of your lifestyle questions, any concerns. I spend quite a lot of time bringing up consultants' letters on the computer. We have it all on a big screen, and we can just go over those line by line to see if you have any questions or concerns that I can help clarify. And if I can't, then I can call the specialist physician. So one of our signature programs is a 2-day workshop that we run about every 4 to 6 weeks called our Life program. We just finished a 2-day workshop today, so I've actually been talking nonstop for 2 days, but I'm still at it, don't worry. Talking was never one of my weak points. So in this comprehensive 2-day workshop, we have different people speak, and we talk about nutrition, exercise, stress reduction, healthy communication, emotional support, sleep and rest. So that goes on every month to every 2 months. Getting started, there's no minimum level of participation. You can choose where to start. Classes and appointments are booked through our front desk. We have quite a large intake form asking you all kinds of questions about you and your health and your relationships. And some of these are just sort of housekeeping things. Family and support is obviously encouraged to participate. We do have information sessions every Monday and Friday. I've got a slide at the very end to show you that. So now we're going to turn our attention to talking about why engaging in self-care and healthful life choices are important. Why do they matter? And we're going to talk a little bit then about how we can support our own health and well-being through nutrition, through exercise, through stress reduction. We're not going to talk quite as much about the mind-body connection today, but those are also discussions that we often have with people. All the while, of course, honoring the role of standard cancer treatment for that overall whole person approach to health. I should say, if you have any questions along the way, I'm happy to entertain them. I'm going to leave time at the end for questions as well. And if there are questions that I think, you know what, why don't you come up and see me afterwards, we can do that one-on-one too. I'm happy to stay. I told you I'm not driving home to Denman Island, so I'm fine. So we do have scientific evidence, and I'm going to show you some of it tonight. I'm not going to be too dragging you down here with studies, but that stress reduction, exercise, eating a healthful diet, having a positive support network can at the very least substantially improve quality of life and at best may optimize cancer recovery and survival. So lifestyle matters. And why does it matter? It comes down to something that is related, and this is a piece of the puzzle. Cancer is a very complicated, multifactorial illness. But a piece of the puzzle relates to this notion. I'm so used to pointing to my screen this way, so I'm called chronic inflammation. And when I first heard about this, I thought, oh, it's a Time magazine, it's kind of a buzzword, it's media. But there does seem to be something to this notion of chronic inflammation, that when we have higher levels of inflammatory markers in our blood, we are at increased risk of certain illnesses. So cancer, as you can see, all stages and most types do have this association with this thing called chronic inflammation. So you may say, well, Lori, how do I know if I have chronic inflammation? Is there a way we can test for it? And the answer is yes and no. We have a couple of markers that we can test, blood tests for inflammation, but they're not fantastic. The reason that we know more about this is really through a research setting where they can get all kinds of little markers of inflammation that are really not readily available. So just to know that this is, and it's not even necessarily anything you feel, it's a concept, and knowing that it's a concept, I think when we look at something called an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, just knowing that that is available to us can help with chronic inflammation. Yes?
You mentioned anti-inflammatory drugs. A lot of drugs like aspirin, I think, is advertised as anti-inflammatory.
Certainly it is.
Does that have any great benefit, taking a
handful
handful a day?
Do you know what? It's an excellent question. And I would say there's actually a fair bit of research looking at that right now. So aspirin, Celebrex is the other one, which tends not to be quite as hard on the stomach. If those anti-inflammatories didn't have side effects, I actually think we would use them a lot in cancer care. I think there is some evidence to suggest that the use of an anti-inflammatory may be beneficial. So if I'm seeing a gentleman who's had heart disease and who is taking aspirin for that, I just say carry on, because maybe that's going to help. The trouble with anti-inflammatories is that they can affect the kidneys negatively, and they can cause gastrointestinal bleeding. So even a baby aspirin a day, 81 milligrams of aspirin a day, can be associated with those risks. So I have been to so many talks over the years, not even related to cancer, just sort of general medicine, family medicine talks called "Should we put aspirin in the drinking water?" Because really, it does seem to be good for a heck of a lot of things. So I think it's a conversation to have. Yeah, I think it's a conversation. Mm-hmm.
If you're done, can you define what you mean by inflammation?
So inflammation is the presence in our blood system of things called pro-inflammatory markers. So our white blood cells, mostly from our white blood cells, they make compounds that just are sort of floating around in our body, and that seems to be associated, it's just these higher levels in our blood. So it's not like my osteoarthritic fingers even. It's just that in our systems, there are these markers that just say that there's maybe a little bit more of them than would otherwise be optimally healthy. It's not an easy definition. Yeah.
So it indicates infection? Is that?
Not necessarily. So for example, I'm going to go back to my osteoarthritic finger. Do you know what I mean by this? You know, these joints up here, the top joints. This is osteoarthritis, so my fingers, so I mean, I can, here we go, we're all good, but I've got this inflammation. So inflammation doesn't always mean infection. Infection just about always means inflammation, but not the reverse. So for example, my husband was stung by a wasp last summer, and his arm was up like this. And I watched that arm, and I thought, is that getting infected, or is that just inflamed? And I thought, you know what, it's probably just inflammation. That is acute inflammation, not chronic inflammation. So let's watch it for a few days. I did have my doctor colleague on Denman Island have a quick peek, and indeed, after a couple of days, it just all settled down. It had nothing to do with infection, it was just inflammation. So infection is absolutely associated with inflammation, but not necessarily vice versa. So this is a statement, a pretty powerful statement from a very conservative textbook of oncology that says, they summarized a bunch of studies. So all the studies summarized suggest that inflammation is closely linked to cancer. These studies indicated that an anti-inflammatory lifestyle could play an important role both in the prevention but also in the treatment of cancer and the prevention of recurrence, if you will. So that's a pretty robust statement coming from a conservative oncology textbook. So what is this anti-inflammatory lifestyle? I just want to talk a little bit about the immune system and why we think this is linked. And again, this is really complicated. If any of you is an immunologist in the room, you are going to realize that I am taking this down to some other, new simplified level. But we do know that in a cancer tumor, if we look at a cancer tumor under the microscope, it's not just cancer cells. There are actually a lot of cells of the immune system that live there, especially those that are related to the inflammatory pathways. They live in with those cancer cells. So you think, well, what's going on? Are they trying to get rid of the cancer like they're supposed to? Are they helping? Are they not helping? Normally our bodies, and I'm going to use a cut for an example because that's kind of an easy thing to imagine. You have a cut on your skin. We have an immune system that diagnoses that cut, that goes and repairs that cut, and then repairs the tissue. So we have a system that diagnoses, that treats, and that repairs. So what we used to think when we saw these immune systems living in with the cancer cells, we just thought they were just being dormant. Why are they not doing what they're supposed to be doing? And there's some new research to show that not only are they not being dormant, some of them may even be actively promoting the growth of some cancers. It's as though tissue repair, which is a part of normal healing, has gone awry. So that the cells in there may be saying, grow more blood vessels, keep growing, keep growing. Normally when we have cells, they grow to a certain point and then they die off. We call that apoptosis. You know, in medicine we can't just use real words. So that's dying off. And normally, so we have cells and then they die off. What happens in cancer? I mean, there's about 8 stages that have to happen, but one of them is that this programmed cell death it gets turned off. So cells keep growing inappropriately. And we think that our own immune system may even be slightly involved in that process. One of the cells that's involved in this inflammatory immune system is called a macrophage. It's a kind of a white blood cell. That's what it looks like. It looks like a fried egg. And normally, a macro, by the way, means big. Phage means eat. So it's a big eater. So normally these cells go along, they find a virus in your lungs, and they go, what are you doing there? I need to eat you up and spit you out. So they wrap their membrane around the virus, they bring it in, their enzymes gobble up the virus, and then they repair the tissue. So how these cells behave in a tumor we think is important. And macrophages seem to have these two different ways they can behave. One is just called M1, and one is called M2. So when they're in their M1 state, they have a certain look, that seems to be a good kind of macrophage. Those are the macrophages you want around, because those are the ones that are going to say, oh, tumor, I don't like you, I need to help get rid of you. In the tissue repair role gone awry, that just may not be all that helpful when they're in their M2 role. So what determines whether or not they're in this M1 helpful configuration or this M2 not so helpful configuration? It seems to be that anything that lowers chronic inflammation helps to shift those cells to their more beneficial M1 role, and anything that increases chronic inflammation helps to shift them to that perhaps less beneficial M2 role. So that's how inflammation and the immune system are related to cancer in very, very basic terms, which is the way that I understand it. So what lowers chronic inflammation? Healthful nutrition, particularly healthy fats, exercise, sleep, healthy lifestyle. Increases chronic inflammation are unhealthy fats, stress, smoking, obesity, infections. I mean, many things are, so excess alcohol, we'll talk about what that means in a bit. But those things tend to be associated. I put this kind of crazy little slide up here with lots of arrows all over the place to show you that inflammation is complicated. There's lots of pathways back and forth. On the left-hand side, it talks about the acute inflammatory response. That would be like my husband's arm from the wasp. And that at the very bottom, it says pathogen clearance. So that means that in that situation, the immune system is working just the way it's supposed to be. In a setting of more chronic inflammation, at the very bottom there, it says immune suppression, that the immune system is just not functioning quite as optimally in this chronic inflammatory milieu. So I really want to drive this point home. It is very important to note that we see so many people who have taken exemplary care of themselves, exercising regularly, eating healthfully, good stress reduction, who still develop cancer or who can get sick. For each person, that combination of factors is different. Obviously, the genetic underpinnings of what this is like and what's happening with the genes are just so different. And I always remind people that even little children can get cancer. That has nothing to do with a bad lifestyle and chronic inflammation. So it's really important. I don't want you to take away from this that, oh my goodness, I wasn't leading this anti-inflammatory lifestyle, so here I am now with cancer. That is not at all the message. It's really more a message, and I think what most people have said to me is it's just an opportunity to say, okay, that makes sense. I now have this diagnosis. Let me just look at all the aspects of my lifestyle and see if there's something I can tweak. So this was a study looking at reversing progression in early prostate cancer. This was a small study. It was a pilot study. Are you guys familiar with Dean Ornish? Does anyone know his name? He's done a lot of work in prostate cancer. He initially started in cardiac rehab. So he was the guy back in the late 80s when I was going to medical school who said, I think we got to get people with heart attacks to exercise. And everyone said, are you crazy? No, their hearts have just been damaged. They can't exercise. And he, of course, has shown that that's critically important. So these were gentlemen with early stage prostate with a Gleason around 6 who had elected not to have surgery. They were going to have watchful waiting or active surveillance. So half of them just carried on being observed, and the other half undertook fairly intense lifestyle changes, including a vegetarian diet, which we don't necessarily recommend, but for the purposes of this study, it was a vegetarian diet. The food was actually prepared for people, so it was really well controlled. These men exercised moderately, nothing crazy, for about an hour a day. They had a daily meditation or relaxation or yoga practice, and they attended a support group about once a week. After the first year, they found that the men who carried on just with their usual lifestyle, their PSA rose up a little bit, not a lot, but 6%. In the fellows who really underwent those very intense lifestyle changes, their PSA actually ended up going down. And at the end of 2 years, about 6 of the 50-ish men who were doing active surveillance ended up progressing to surgery and or radiation because of either elevated PSA or their biopsies showing deterioration. And in the healthy lifestyle, not one of those men ended up progressing to surgery or radiation. Another follow-up study that they did was they took blood from the, I'm calling them the usual guys, and they took blood from the healthy lifestyle guys. So they've got these 2 pools of blood here, and they added prostate cancer cells. We have those cells in the lab for research. So they added prostate cancer cells to those petri dishes. And what they found was that in the blood from the super healthy guys, that blood, something was in that it inhibited the growth of those prostate cancer cells by about 70%. So you'd expect sort of the growth to go at a certain amount. So the growth was quite inhibited. Inhibited by 9% in the control group, so not nothing. But that's a big difference. So what, lives in our blood? Our immune system, our inflammatory markers. So something is going on. This is a tiny, tiny study as studies go, but it's interesting. It's interesting to think that lifestyle may matter. So Dr. Dean Ornish has said, in our studies, we have found that people who already have heart disease or prostate cancer may slow, may stop, or even reverse its progression just by making intensive changes in diet and lifestyle. The more people change their diet and lifestyle, the more improvement we saw. It costs less to eat and live healthfully. Walking, loving, and meditating are free and require no special equipment. So I like that because I am a thrifty Scot. So let's turn our attention to exercise. How many of you are happy with the amount of exercise you're getting? Okay, that's pretty good. And there's an exercise group as part of your support group, which is fantastic. So exercise. Look at my next slide here. It says yes, yes, yes. Now seriously, what can we do to improve our health? So here's the physician. Exercise. 8 etceteras. I love this slide. I used to say to my patients when I was in family medicine, if I could put exercise into a pill, I would be a multi-trillionaire. Because it really works for so many things. But I'm not going to put it in a pill because I want you to exercise. So, this is a graph showing, and we do have data to support this. We actually have a really wonderful medical student working with us a couple of years ago who looked a lot at exercise and immune function. So on this slide, which kind of looks like a fish, the blue line is immune function, and the red line is inflammation. So you'll see when you're inactive, we're kind of at this neutral-ish line. With regular, moderate exercise, and I'm going to tell you what that means, your inflammation, the inflammatory markers in studies are at their lowest, and your immune function is at the highest with regular, moderate exercise. If you are overtrained, I would put people like Hawaii Ironman athletes into that. Do I have any Hawaii Ironman athletes here, Penticton Ironman athletes? I'm not, it works for some people, but definitely we know with overtraining that inflammation is actually going to start to go up, immune system is going to start to go down. So regular moderate. Regular moderate usually means about 150 minutes of just moderate to brisk-ish exercise per week, or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise per week. So 150 minutes of moderate exercise, that's a half an hour, 5 days a week. So for most people, that's kind of doable. The other thing, again, to think of movement as exercise, so any movement. So you don't necessarily even have to go for a walk or a swim or join a gym or join a class. Just being up and about counts. There's a lot more research showing that being sedentary, I'm sorry you're all sitting now, that being sedentary is also something to think about. The other thing is I've seen a lot of people who have been super duper exercisers, and they tend to get into all or nothing mentality. If I can't exercise, I just saw you there. If I can't exercise full tilt, I'm not going to exercise at all. And I say to people, do you know what? Exercise is like pennies. It all counts. So even 2 or 3 or 5 minutes a day, especially on days if you're having treatment or you're just feeling awful, even just getting outside for a little bit, it all counts. So don't negate that kind of exercise. I'm sorry, this is I don't mean for you to read this. I've only put it up so that I can remember the name of the study. Physical activity and survival after prostate cancer. This was a study looking at about 3,000 gentlemen and looking at their exercise patterns after a diagnosis of prostate cancer. This was in gentlemen with stages 1, 2, and 3, so not metastatic prostate cancer. And what they found was that those who exercised more than 90 minutes a week, so that's 3 times 30-minute walks, at a normal to very brisk pace, had a 46% lower risk of all-cause mortality, so dying from anything. We always have to check that in studies, because if you're just checking for prostate cancer mortality, but your intervention causes you to die from something else sooner, we've got to know that. So when you're looking at studies, it's important to look at all-cause mortality. Gentlemen who exercised more than 3 hours a week vigorously had a 49% lower risk of all-cause mortality. That's not a big difference. So that, the sweet spot is sort of somewhere in there. So you don't have to be going crazy with exercise, but it's important to be doing something. This was a systematic literature review called Effects of Exercise on Treatment-Related Adverse Effects for Patients with Prostate Cancer Receiving Androgen Deprivation Therapy. Holy title. A systematic review. So looking at how exercise might help those on hormone therapy, androgen deprivation therapy. What they found is that exercise improved physical performance. That means you could do more tasks, basically. It improves your cardiovascular fitness, quality of life. Men reported that they felt better and that they were less fatigued. It also helped to increase lean body mass. Those of you who are taking androgen deprivation therapy know that just increased fatty tissue is an issue. So exercise seems to help at least maintain that body mass and also maintain bone density, which is also an issue with androgen deprivation therapy. So it's nice that we have something that's not a pill that we can do to help in these areas. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I just love this broccoli jumping rope here. So, exercise should be progressive, it should be fun, it should be energizing. If you are feeling really tired after exercise, then that is a message to just slow it down a little bit. So it should feel energizing. You're lucky that I'm not doing this in my office. I get everybody up and we put on 70s music and we move. And then we do a survey of how many people feel more energetic afterwards. And now maybe they just have to, they don't want to make me feel badly. But everybody puts up their hand. 3 minutes of just, moving. So we do have exercise programs that inspire health, and you certainly have them through the Prostate Cancer Support Group. As part of our services, we offer a one-to-one consultation with an exercise therapist. It's a 75-minute consultation. We have classes, we have resistance, we have yoga, we have a walking group, we have online exercise webinars. So we have a lot of ways through our programming to help folks out with exercise. So if you didn't put up your hand around being satisfied with your exercise, you can come and see us. So let's talk a little bit about nutrition and what a healthy diet looks like with respect to prostate cancer. So we really are made of what we eat. Our food provides, we know this, the raw materials for building, fuel for energy, nutrients to make our reactions go and our enzymes, and obviously pleasure and nourishment. The food choices we make affect our mood, the way we learn, our sleep, our energy, our development, our hormones, really our whole being. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the gut microbiome because I love the gut. My husband's like, Lori, stop talking about the gut microbiome. But are you familiar with the gut microbiome?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the bacteria, the good bacteria. We often think of bacteria as bad guys, don't we? But we have got about 2 kilograms, 5 pounds of bacteria that live in our intestines, and they manufacture vitamins, and they break down toxins, and they have a major role in our immune system. And they also help to produce a hormone called serotonin. Serotonin is a hormone that we often think of as a brain hormone. It's the hormone that we can shift and change with antidepressants. It's the hormone we like to raise with the use of antidepressants. That's made in our gut. If our gut is happy, then we are actually making extra feel-good hormone. So the whole gut feeling thing makes sense. So when I say it can affect your mood, we actually have some really interesting research out there about it. If this is an interesting topic to you, The Nature of Things, the David Suzuki program, must be a couple of years ago, did a great show called It Takes Guts. And if you just Google that, you can find it. It's about 45 minutes all about the gut microbiome. This is a quote from the Canadian Medical Association journal. Plant-based diets have been associated with changes in the gut microbiome that help to protect against inflammatory, we talked about chronic inflammation, and carcinogenic cancer processes. So we definitely have evidence that plant-based diets help with this. I'm just minding my time here. Oh, I could talk so much more about the gut microbiome. So what ideally do we want to eat? We talk about the whole food diet. You want to eat something that has been grown, raised, harvested, or hunted, because it comes complete with everything we need to break down. We absorb what we need, our bodies get rid of what we don't. So it's the whole food diet. It's shopping the perimeter of a grocery store. It's cooking. Synergy. Here's a picture of a tomato. You guys have, with prostate cancer, you've heard that tomatoes are maybe helpful, particularly for a compound called lycopene, which is a carotenoid. So that is in abundance in tomatoes. But so are so many other things as a whole food. So that's good. But what's really good is to cook the tomato up with a bit of olive oil. Lycopene is a fat-soluble compound, so if it's eaten together with some fat, you're going to absorb it better. And if it's cooked, it's going to be more stable, lycopene. So that synergy, that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. This is the whole food spectrum. So you see here we put on the optimal end on the green side with maybe an organic, local apple. There's lots of things about organic we can talk about, but just for the purposes of this illustration. And that's going to be fresh, and it's going to have all its vitamins and minerals, and its water and phytonutrients. If we reduce that to apple juice, we're going to lose some fiber, we're going to lose some nutrients, and if we put it into a breakfast bar with apple filling, then that maybe is the less optimal way to eat an apple. So we talk about the spectrum of whole food, and that best you can, you want to be shifting most of your choices towards the optimal end of the whole food spectrum. Importance of daily hydration. That reminds me I have to drink my water. Thank you, Gary. So, we have a lot of water in us, so it's important to replenish that water. We lose water. It's helpful for our kidneys. It helps improve fatigue. If you are feeling fatigued, the first thing I tell people to do is have a big glass of water. The second thing I tell them to do is go outside and walk for at least 5 minutes. If at the end of 5 minutes you say, I'm pooped, you turn around, you go home and you have a rest. Fair enough. But if at the end of 5 minutes you say, I think I'm okay, then you carry on, maybe have a little bit of a longer walk. So I think that most of us walk around a little bit dehydrated. I tell people to drink and drive. I carry a water bottle with me whenever I'm in the car. And just, you just drink away as you're driving. People say, well, how much should I be drinking, Lori? And it's really hard to know. I think that's a great discussion with our dietitian, and then how often are you urinating, and obviously with prostate, that can be different, so we got to suss that out individually. Hydrate with water, with herbal teas, with broths, with smoothies, with ice chips, with yogurt, not pop, alcohol, caffeine, and even juice, I would say. So I'm all about eat fruit, drink water. Healthy habit tip is to have a glass of water at your bedside table so that first thing in the morning you have a nice large glass of water. Moving away from this diet mentality, away from, the low carb diet, the no fat, the high protein, thinking about calories in and out, really towards that more whole synergistic nutrients that have more of a purpose than just controlling weight. I really don't like to talk about weight. I just like to talk about gaining health, not losing weight for people who are concerned about losing weight, because it just often goes hand in hand and you're going to reach a weight that's right. Dairy. Have you heard controversy about dairy? Do you wonder about dairy? The research is all over the place, and it depends where the cows are living, what they're getting, and so on. We do have some studies linking milk and or calcium, we're not sure, to the development of prostate cancer. Is it helpful to consider organic dairy? Hard to know. Dairy from smaller animals, maybe less hormones on board. You do definitely want to make sure, though, that you are getting enough calcium and enough vitamin D, particularly for bone health, particularly in the setting of ADT. So those are discussions that we can have.
Lori?
Yes?
The dairy issue, is that just around cow milk or is that goat milk as well?
Well, it really is around cow milk because that's where the research has been done. So we just don't have research looking at what about people who use a goat product. It makes sense to me because it's a smaller animal, it's going to be a grass-fed animal. We know that the fatty acid composition in a grass-fed animal is completely different from in a grain-fed animal. So some of it may be related to that too. So it's a good question. Yeah.
Is soya milk is non-dairy?
Soy is beneficial.
Soya milk, yes.
Yeah, soy milk. Be careful. Some soy milks are a more highly processed food than others. So I usually have people, if they want to have soy, and soy is good in the setting of prostate cancer for sure, to have it in the whole food form with tofu or edamame rather than soy milk. But soy milk is a reasonable substitute for dairy, for cow milk. And I must say, I defer to my nutrition team around which is the better soy milk. Yeah. This is just a visual showing that in a day, you want to think that about half of what you eat is going to be a veggie, all different colors to get all different vitamins and minerals. You can put some fruit into that half. About a quarter of what you're going to eat is a whole grain. And then meats and alternatives, and I actually wish it was, I have another visual here. I had a patient last week who said, Laura, you did not drill this home to me enough around the healthy plate. If I'd taken this in, I think I would be feeling better. So she's working on it harder now. So here's another visual. Eat as many veggies as you like. Have a little bit down there of your protein. Have some whole grains, and the little blue dot is some fat. Yes?
Does putting that in soup or stew, does that make it better or worse?
It is probably neutral. I think for some, tomatoes, for example, need to be cooked, but no, there's absolutely no reason you can't make this into a soup or stew. That's a great way to get all of your nutrition. Plus, you can batch cook, and you can freeze, so it's just a handy, good way to eat. Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt the...
No. You put it all, it's all going together in your belly anyway. So whether or not it sort of starts all together, ends up all together, it's fine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Smoothies is another great way for people to just get more nutrients in. Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on supplements, A, B complex, C, D?
Yeah. The research, again, is conflicting. It's kind of all over the map. Really, the only supplement that I typically talk to people about is vitamin D. So we have got conflicting research about many other supplements, and some of my concerns around supplements are related to the fact that the quality control for many supplements, I'm sorry, did everyone hear the question? I said I was going to repeat the question. The question was about supplements, A, B's, C's, D's, and there was a great study out of University of Guelph about 8 or 10 years ago where they took a whole whack of supplements, took all the supplements out of the bottles, and then actually analyzed the supplements. And what they found was that what they analyzed in the lab was quite different from what was on the label. Things were added, things were subtracted, there was more of stuff, there was less of stuff. So I'm always a bit concerned about supplements from that point of view. Again, we have lots of one-on-one discussion around supplements. I really prefer, if people can swing it, to get their nutrients from whole foods. I think it's just a better way to get our nutrients. Yes.
Not only is what you eat important, but I just had a medical a while ago, and they asked me what I ate, and I said I ate salad this, and they said, well, how much do you eat? And I said, well, I have a piece of salmon as big as this, and they went berserk, and they gave me a plate about this big.
The 9-inch
And
plate. I know
said
that's
the volume is equally as important as to what you eat.
Sure. Yeah.
And even if it's the right stuff,
Yeah.
the volume is extremely, they give me this little plate that says never eat more than.
You know, I think that there is something to that. In this visual, this is a 9-inch plate. So portion control is absolutely important. Are you familiar with the work of Michael Pollan? He wrote a book called The Omnivore's Dilemma. Gosh, must be 10 plus years ago now. He's a journalist out of the States who he traveled all over. He collected data on farms and eating. And his advice was boiled down to 7 words. And if we actually look at literature in the medicine, it really comes down to this. Eat food, not very much, mostly plants. And really, most of our research is going to support that. Yeah, those 7 words. So, okay, I would go ballistic. If you said to me, well, I'm eating fish, I'm eating veggies, I would praise you, and I would say, okay. Well, you know, we usually talk about our protein being the palm of our hand. That's not a heck of a lot of protein. So to think of protein as your side dish and your veggies as your main dish. This was a study showing that adoption of a plant-based diet by patients with recurrent prostate cancer, basically that their PSAs, you know, they look at the rate of increase of PSA often. So the rate of increase of PSA declined with the adoption of a plant-based diet. Again, small pilot study. So changes in the rate of PSA rise were in the opposite directions of changes in intake of plant-based food groups, perhaps suggesting that patients' prostate cancers may have responded quickly to changes in diet. This was only over 6 months. This also raises the intriguing possibility that diet may play an important, relatively immediate biological role in the progression of prostate cancer and may also have therapeutic potential in the management of recurrent disease. Again, small study, but interesting. People don't tend to do worse when they eat like this. And most people feel better. So key nutrition suggestions in prostate cancer. I think the research is showing mostly plant-based, whole food diet. Plants are our fruits, our veggies, our grains, lentils, beans, peas. What country is the #1 producer of lentils in the world? Canada. Isn't that excellent? How many of you eat lentils? You know the great thing about lentils is you don't even have to soak them. You just cook them and you throw them into your pot of stew. I just throw them into stuff. Include a variety of veggies, especially those rich in lycopene, like cooked tomatoes. And we didn't talk about the cruciferous veggies, but we actually have research showing that men who eat broccoli, 400 grams a week, which is about 2 bunches like this, which is not a lot if you put a few bits into your salad every day or eat it up cooked, that they can actually, that has been associated with changes in genes, not blue genes, the GENES genes, the genes in the prostate that help to protect against cancer and recurrence. These are little studies. Soy foods in the whole food form, I think, is probably the better way to take soy foods in. We didn't talk about whole ground flaxseed, but there does seem to be some evidence that including that in your diet, 2 to 4 tablespoons a day, is healthy. It's omega-3 fatty acids. It's important to grind it when you eat it, rather than buying the ground flax seeds, because those oils sort of disintegrate with time. So I just have an old coffee grinder, and every morning I grind up my 4 tablespoons of flax seeds, 2 for my husband in this porridge, 2 for me in my porridge.
Question.
Yes.
I store my flaxseed in the freezer.
Yep.
Does that work?
I don't know. It's what I do with my flaxseed when I'm in Victoria, because I grind it up on Denman, I bring it down, I put it in the freezer. So I think I don't know the answer to that. So I certainly have done it. If you can grind it, at the time of use, that is still your best bet, if that works. Yeah. And foods rich in selenium. Brazil nuts are phenomenally high in selenium. Mixed nuts, I have to just here, avoiding the salted and roasted nuts. Always, look at the thing, because if they're salted and roasted, now you're getting extra fat and you're getting extra salt. So what I like to do with nuts, I put them in a cold oven. I set the oven for 350 degrees, and at the end of 6 minutes, I take my hazelnuts out, and at the end of 9 minutes, I take my almonds out. I haven't done Brazil nuts yet, but I think they would need at least 9 minutes. The oven's not even up to temperature. Take them out, and they're just beautifully toasted. It's a nice way to toast your nuts, and you're not getting the extra fats and salt. Alcohol. We know alcohol is a carcinogen. If we take ordinary cells and put them into alcohol, they will turn to cancer cells, not all of them. And the first thing that alcohol becomes when it goes to our liver is called acetaldehyde. That is also a carcinogen. So total consumption over a lifetime is important. I just put this on for breast cancer because I knew we would have some gals in the audience, but there's some evidence that even less than a drink a day, and we've always said 1 or 2 drinks a day is fine, but even less than a drink a day may be associated with an increased risk of breast cancer. So the literature is more and more saying that alcohol may be more carcinogenic than we have believed, and that the benefits we have attributed to alcohol may be less. That the benefits may be related to the fact that the people who have the Mediterranean diet and have their 2 glasses of red wine, that really it's because they're eating very well and exercising very well. It may have nothing to do with the wine. So that's a bummer. But but a little bit. So what is a drink? So this is a drink: wine, 5 ounces, or 142 mils, which is about 2/3 of a measuring cup. That's a pretty healthy amount, I think. Can of beer, 1.5 ounces of spirit. So that's a drink. So there's no right or wrong around alcohol. I usually say to people, you try to not have something every day, basically. So the second line is what I want to talk about here, the 80-20 approach. We talk about this, that about 80% of the time you're going to try to eat as optimally as possible. But every so often you fancy a treat. Maybe that is a glass of wine. Maybe that's a sweet. Maybe it's something that otherwise is going to have a higher inflammatory index. But you enjoy it and you eat it mindfully and just take that in for nourishing. So that's our nutrition services, one-on-one consultation with a dietitian and 75-minute and follow-ups as well. We have cooking classes, we have nutritional workshops, we have online recipes and webinars. Stress reduction. I just want to say that that's important. Bottom line, relaxation and stress reduction take practice. So it's not just a matter of having extra naps, it's actually a matter of trying to create a technique that's going to give you stress relaxation. So mindfulness is a technique that many people use. What the heck is that? So this is the definition. It means paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment without judgment. So that if your mind is wandering off, you don't say, oh crap, I'm not getting this mindfulness thing. You just, it's okay, it's okay. Have a look at that. So, I am talking about the mindfulness that lives on the right, the attention to what's going on in my world right now. Different tools for mindfulness, there's deep breathing, 5 senses I like. When I'm out walking, I actually say to myself, what are you seeing, what are you hearing, what are you smelling, what are you feeling? I'm not usually tasting things when I'm outside, but trying to use your senses. It just kind of is a way to stay in the moment. So lots of different ways that people find mindfulness. And for some people it really is, it's walking in nature. It doesn't have to be a sitting and cross-legged, It can be just different ways of being in that present moment. This is a busy slide that I'm not going to worry about. We have got an online meditation Thursdays. Actually, it's just finished. So from 7 to 7:45, so you guys are here the first Thursday of every month, but we have an online meditation. You don't have to be an Inspire Health member. You can just go on the website and sign up for that. I do want to spend a minute here that there's this new age misconception that everybody has to have a positive attitude. Is this something that you've heard over the time when you were diagnosed with cancer? Just have a positive attitude, or you have a positive attitude, you're going to do really, really well. Well, some days you don't have a positive attitude. Some days you're angry, you're sad, you're frustrated, and it's really important to acknowledge the full gamut of emotions, to allow that, we call it that natural shift. And maybe if you're feeling that way, then you say, okay, I'm just having a really crappy day. I need to maybe do something. Maybe I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to pick up the phone and call a friend. Just to sort of acknowledge that. So don't worry that always about having a positive attitude. The other thing is I've seen people who have been doing all of this stuff really, really right, and they have a recurrence of their prostate cancer. Their markers are going up, or it has spread. It doesn't mean you haven't done it well enough. I think we really have to be careful about making sure that people understand, again, that cancer is a multifactorial, complicated illness. That's why we really talk about optimizing quality of life. People typically say when they adopt some of these strategies that they just feel better. So our support services at Inspire Health are consultation with a clinical counselor, we have support groups, we have meditation, we have these workshops that we call LEAP, which are body, mind, spirit, and passion. We run them every couple of weeks, 2 hours to explore those different aspects. We have art therapy, and we also have acupuncture for chemotherapy or radiation side effects. One of our exercise therapists is also a trained acupuncturist, so we have that on Wednesdays. So we have online programs and resources. So on Online Canada here, if you click there, that's where you would click to get onto online meditation on Thursday. Does someone need water? You okay? Yeah. Online meditation on Thursday. That's where we have webinars, and we have a couple of guided meditations on our online page as well. And under resources, we have got a collection of fantastic recipes. So if you're interested in trying to up the oomph of a more plant-based diet, have a look at our recipes. And they're really nice because they're easy to do. They use ordinary ingredients. You're not using a quarter teaspoon of something you're never going to use again. And we also have a supportive cancer care guide. So this is where we are. We're above the TD Canada Trust in Athlone Court. Are you familiar with that in Oak Bay? That's where we live. There's our little waiting room. I saw this picture and I thought, people are going to think we have a leaky ceiling. But in fact, these are our fantastic umbrellas, and I'm sorry I did not bring mine tonight, but our major fundraising event of the year is our rain walk. And we had our second annual rain walk this year, and it was sunny as all get out, so that was fantastic. We didn't need our umbrellas, but we call it a rain walk, and we all get together, and everybody wears orange and white, and it's just terrific. There's our kitchen. I showed this to the oncologists, and they said, Lori, is that a bottle of wine there? Because you just were telling us not to drink that much. And no, that's actually olive oil, good healthy fat. So that's where we have our cooking classes. And that's our Victoria team. That was us at the rain walk this year. That was the picture that we took sending out thanks to our sponsors. So we're a bunch of gals, as you can see. We're testosterone deficient. So any questions you can drop in Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. We have a really good website. If this is of interest to you, have a peek at our website. We have a lot of good information on our website. We have what we call our fireside information sessions. Twice a week we have it Monday from 3 to 4 and Friday from 11 to 12. If you're interested in learning more about what we have to offer, you can pop in for that. Okay. Any questions, concerns, comments? Yes?
Yeah, to get into your place, you have to go right the way through from the front, walk all the way down, back up the elevator, and then back. It's not on the front side.
It's on the Oak Bay, Hampshire corner.
Yeah,
But you're right, to get to it, you have to go up the elevator, which is in the opposing corner. And you have to go up and then walk around. Absolutely, yes, yeah. There's no kind of easy, direct.
Yeah, but the way it looks from the picture.
I know, it looks so easy. You've got to be Spider-Man and just climb up the outside. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
Before I had the radiation therapy, I suffered from acid reflux.
Reflux, yeah.
But the radiation therapy affected my stomach to the point where I couldn't eat very much.
Oh dear, okay.
And since then, I haven't had acid reflux at all.
Really?
Yes.
Radiation therapy is a cure for acid reflux.
Yikes.
I don't see a big study coming on here. I don't see people signing up for the, you suffer from acid reflux? Sign up for our radiation study. And otherwise you didn't change what you were eating
No, I
necessarily.
didn't, no, I didn't.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I heard another situation, yeah.
Yeah.
If you drink a lot of beer, you get sleepy.
Yes.
If you're sleepy, you do no sinning. If you do no sinning, you go to heaven. So let's drink and go to heaven.
This is a chain of causation that may not stand up to scientific scrutiny,
No.
but for the interest of a good story. That's right. Yes.
Just one comment on the stress. One of the biggest reducers of stress is exercise. I don't think you've stressed that enough, that the hormones you get released in your body. If you
The
start
endorphins,
exercise,
yeah.
You come out exercise, you feel
Yeah.
like $1 million
Yeah.
after you started when you
Yep.
did even one exercise. And so that's probably the most important function of exercise of anything else. Psychologically,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. I always say to people, I defy you to feel worse after exercise. You may have some days when you're feeling just not fantastic and you feel neutral. But by and large, you are absolutely going to feel better after exercise, and even a little bit of exercise. I had some medical students working with me a couple of years ago, and I had a young fellow working with me, and he said, you know what I've learned from you, Lori, after a month, this is being recorded too. After a month of working with you, I learned that I need to dance more in my kitchen when I'm cooking. So he's in his kitchen cooking, so that's good, and he's moving while he's cooking. He got the tune. I learned this from my mother. And I said, excellent, I think that's really good, I'm glad you learned that from me. Do not tell your preceptor. Because your medical school colleagues are going to be learning how to do things like take, biopsies of ugly things and lumbar punctures and delivering babies. And you're going to go back and say, well, I work with this doctor. And what I learned from her was that I had to dance more in my kitchen when I was cooking. But no, you're absolutely right. There's endorphins. It's one of the best ways to get our endorphins going is by exercise. Absolutely. Anything else?
and you've heard, I'm sure, Mark Twain's comment about diet.
What did Mark say?
To live a long, healthy life, you eat things you don't like, drink things you can't stand, and have portions that are small. And you really won't live a longer life, it just seems like you will.
I have to
That's what Mark Twain said.
I actually have this crazy palate that I crave vegetables. It's absurd, I know. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, I had a fellow today who says, Lori, I just can't do veggies. I can't do
Strange,
them.
and most things that taste good are bad for you, there's many.
I know, we talk about that
Yeah.
treats, what is a treat? I always say to people, most people don't say, I just really have to have a head of broccoli right now. No, your treat is your sweets, it's your alcohol, yes. I know, we do, the scientific industry has absolutely, in the food industry, they have titrated the sweet, salty thing down to a science.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's absolutely scary what's out there in some of our so-called foods. Yeah.
Do powdered greens that you put in like a smoothie count for vegetables, or is that just the advertising stuff?
Yeah, I would stay away from a powdered green. I just throw in spinach, throw in kale, throw in a real green veggie. Yeah, absolutely. And then you're getting your whole food, and it's not processed. Yeah. And it's less packaging typically. Yeah.
What about whey powder?
Same thing, right? So that's using it as a protein. So what I say to people is get a chunk of tofu and throw it into your smoothie. That's a whole food source, it's a protein, it really doesn't have much in the way of flavor, so it's not going to affect the flavor of the smoothie. So I use the tofu. Are any of you Costco members? I don't know if I'm so, yeah. So Costco actually has a great tofu that they sell. It's a 3-pack, it's organic, it's non-GMO. And it's a nice tofu, and you can bung it into the freezer if you're not going to eat all 3 of them right away. So I usually suggest tofu as a protein for a shake. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Yes, and
I
thank you.
just have a quick question about acupuncture.
Yes.
And its effectiveness for some of the side effects.
Yeah.
Maybe fellows on ADT might experience
Yeah.
the hot flashes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. We have, as you might imagine, the most research around what we call the vasomotor symptoms, the hot flushes and night sweats and all those symptoms that you get on ADT that women also get in the menopause. We have a lot of research in menopausal women, and the two things that are most effective for hot flushes are acupuncture and what's the second?
Exercise.
Yes! So acupuncture has actually been shown in studies to be effective for the vasomotor symptoms. And whereas we give priority to people who are actively undergoing chemo or radiation for our acupuncture, it's group acupuncture. So people get together in chairs in a group and Rachel gives everybody their acupuncture. We absolutely often have space for other folks to come in. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, we have, there's good research for acupuncture around nausea and vomiting in chemotherapy. Yeah, I know chemotherapy is less often used in the setting of most prostate cancer. It's usually going to be your surgery, your radiation, and hormone therapy for most folks, most gentlemen. Yeah. Okay. Let's get up and just sort of shake it. I feel like we have to do that.